G'day guys, it's Curly from Curly's Quad Shed Down Under with part 2 of the Bont Mark II build. Now part 1, we measured our feet, so in millimeters, so we can then trace our foot onto the grid paper. We measured our feet, length and width, the widest part, and we sent them off to Bont to get our boots. Decided now I asked for the extra wide, so the wide, not extra wide, just the wide build for my wider feet. But anyway, that's here nor there. But so if you want to refresh yourself, go back to part 1 and see what we did. We also marked a couple of different points on our feet. We marked where our big toe meets the ball of our foot, and we also put a mark where our center of our outside ankle bone and the center of our inside ankle bone. Now, when I measure between the big toe ball of foot joint and the center of my outside ankle bone, I came up with a measurement of about 148 or something, but I went a bit longer than that. I went a 155. I prefer a 155. I also noticed that when I did mark those parts on my foot, I wasn't quite accurate enough. So when I did go back and remeasure, I'm closer to a 155 for me personally. So once again, to find your Aussie mount length of axle spread, we measure from where the big toe meets the ball of the foot and from the center of our outside ankle bone. And then what I did was then I also marked where my center of my inside ankle bone was and put that on the paper as well. So you can see that there's a couple of different points. And also the center of your foot goes basically between your second and third toe. But we'll get onto that a bit more now. Now what I did, because I've got the boot here, I actually measured my right foot, but this is my left boot. So I actually just traced it from behind and I remarked some of the points on here. And what we're going to do now is we're going to transfer one important mark we want to do right now. We want to put a mark on our boot where that big toe ball of foot joint is. So I traced my foot, I marked where that was, and it's about there. I have done it already, so it's like I prepared it earlier. So what we've done, you can see now here, we get rid of that bit of paper. So I put it on, marked it, and you can see here, I turn off to my nice big camera. You can see there's a mark there where it says big toe ball of joint. It's a big toe ball of foot junction. That is where that junction is. Okay. Now, there's also the middle of my outside ankle bone as well. I've marked that. So what we now need to do, we now need to see where our axles are going to be. So I prefer to have my axles about 1 centimeter or maybe 12 millimeters forward of that big toe ball of foot joint. Once again, this is just preference, but you're pretty much anything that is on the big toe joint and forward of that, which then makes it forward of that middle of your inside ankle bone, that's pretty much an Aussie mount. So what I have to do is you have to sort of correlate, find out where your axles are. So you put a square on and we can mark the plate there. I wish actual companies would mark where the axles are, it makes it a little bit easier. So we're going to mark where that is. Now I like to have about 1 centimeter forward of that. So I'm going to put another little mark about 1 centimeter forward of where that is. So let's see if I can get that. I don't want to get this on camera too well, but I was going to mark it 1 centimeter or 10 mil, actually about 12 mil. I'll go about 12 mil. Okay, so that little mark there, that mark just there, that is where I want my axle. So front axle is there. Now that's probably the most important part when we come to this. We don't need to mark our rear one because they'll just fall into place naturally. So we line up, now I've marked the plate, and if you can see the little marks there, I might have to take the wheel off, just so you can see where that mark is. I have marked, see that little black mark there? That black mark is where my axle is, pretty much lined up. If you can see that, I'll just get that a bit closer in. Right, move this out of the way. You can see that if you can line that up. It's a bit of a parallax area here, but pretty much where that black mark is where the axle is, center of the axle. Now I'm going to put that That's where I want my axle to be. About at around about there. Now what we want to do, okay. Sorry, that didn't make much sense there, but okay. So what we want to do now, we want to measure from where that front axle is, and we know it's 155. So I just now go 155 back from there, and of course the phone starts to ring as soon as I am in this thing. All right, guys, I'm going to have to come back to it. Bye. Okay, guys, this video has been one of the worst ones I've tried to get done. I've had so many interruptions. Anyway, so back to it. Now, I made a few little marks while I was on the phone. I was on the phone for about 10 minutes. So what we've done, we've marked where our front axle is. So we've marked where our front axle is. Now, when I measure back 155, which is the actual spread of my axle, you'll see that that's where my rear axle will be. And you see it's just forward. You can see it's just, I'll put it there. You can see it's just forward of where the middle of the inside ankle bone is. So it's probably about 5 mil, about 5 mil forward of that point. And you can see that the front axle is about 12 mil. It is it's actually about 15 mil forward of that. So these 2 points, that's the 2 lines there where the axles are, that's where we want to measure. That's where we want to measure across to get the center of our boot, get the center of our mouth, because that's where the center, that's where our axles are. So that's where you want it to be center. Okay. So I use a pair of I always forget what these are damn balls called. Vernier calipers. You don't have to use vernier calipers, just makes it a little bit easier. So I just lay it over top there like that, and now that is reading just on 90. Let's go stand up a little bit first. Right, so that is just on, just have to trust me on this one. And of course, put my texture down. So it's just on 90. So read the vernier correctly. And that is about there. So that's 90. It's the middle of where that axle is. And I come out here to the back of the rear of the boot. And that is 82. So it makes that 41. So mark on 41. Okay. So we got a mark there. So I got a mark just there, which is the center of the front axle. The mark there is the center of the rear axle, according to the vernier calipers. Now, remember, this is the first stage of measuring your center or getting your mount done perfectly. Draw a line, mark those 2 lines up, draw a line, bang, all the way down. Okay, so now I have a line. It goes from the front all the way down to the back, which is our center line. Now that one, the center line does look a little bit off. I think the shape of the boot at the back is a bit funky. So I'm actually, to me, it looks like it's a little bit off. I might actually go by the actual seam. But once again, as I said, this is only, I don't know. I just do a traditional method, come back a bit further on the rear of the boot. So that's 74, so makes it 32. Yeah, on the back there, I didn't actually go where the axle was because it's sort of a little bit, the boot's a bit funny there with the heel grip. The heel counter is a bit sort of bulging out, probably because of the shape of my foot. So I just went traditional method. I went back here where it was nice and symmetrical, and I measured halfway there. So that puts that center line about there. And so let's go redraw that line. Which puts it pretty much dead center of what the joint of the boot is. So that joint of the boot is pretty much really relatively where your middle of your boot is. So look, don't get too anal about a lot of this stuff. I know people get to the nth degree, but this is just the beginning phase. This is just the beginning of mounting your boot. So we're going to leave it there for the day. So once again, we've measured now the center of our boot, and now we can on the next one we can. So we found out where our front axle was going. That just automatically went to where our rear axle was going. Mark in between from. Actually, one thing I do want to show you, just to prove something. If I put this boot now where that axle is, where that center line is, just extrapolate it a little bit, just so you can see it. And I put on the bit of paper where I said the middle of my toe was. I'm going to line that up there. Let me have a look. And so it's roughly over the top inside the boot measurements. And if I turn this around, you should see. You can't see, it's too close. All right, pull this back a bit. See where my moved. So basically there, you can see where, pull this back a bit more so the camera can see it. Where I said that where the middle of your toe was, your middle of your foot is between the second and third toe. You see that line is pretty close to it. Pretty much on that mark. It's probably a little bit off, but it's pretty close to it, maybe a couple mil. So as I said, your middle of your foot is pretty much goes between your second and third toe. So that sort of correlates quite well. Look, I hope that was once again, these videos just lately have been so problematic trying to get things done, running out of time, and I try to rush them. I get tongue tied, and look, I just hopefully that it's all is explained relatively easily. I know I waffle on a fair bit, and of course, phone calls interrupt your chain of thought, and I try and do these without a script and anything, so because I don't have time to write a script anyway. So just go what's in the old grey matter. All right, guys. So thanks for watching, and hopefully join me for part 3, which will be marking the boots, enjoying the boots, and so forth. All right, guys. Thanks for watching, and have a great day. See you. Bye.